Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Doherty.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special episode. And today we're talking all about money. Look, you cannot be in business without thinking about how to make more, how to manage what you have, and how to make sure that that money goes further. And today you're in the right place if you want to know how to do that. In fact, we have entitled this very talk as the 7 deadly cash flow sins and how to avoid them. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, what am I doing wrong? I just don't seem to have enough cash every month. It's like month on month, when you get to the end of the month, you don't have enough cash. Well, you may have enough resources and you may be making profit, but profit does not equal cash flow. You and I know that. And you may be committing one of these deadly sins. We call them cash flow deadly sin. So if you are like that, you're in the right place, because my guest Jeannie, who is joining me all the way from Gold Coast, Australia. I love Australia. You guys know that. Is going to show you exactly what you need to do and how you can you can avoid all these deadly sins. Jeannie, thanks for joining us here on the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to share with the audience.
Incredible. I know it's really early there, so we want to thank you for being up so early to join us here to support business owners and get them on the right path. What a blessing. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Lots of coffee.
One of the things I absolutely love about you, Jeannie, is how you have helped your family business to go from 10 million to 100 million revenue over a very short space of time, and how they sold that company to a public company and is going on to produce several $1 million ever since. Not only that, you're an amazing mom, and you truly get it. Like we always put it here on the show, that your health counts fast. You get that and you pursue that very, very well. And on top of that, you love dancing, which is one of those things that I think everybody should do. That I do salsa dancing, and I'm hoping you can mention maybe what type of dance you do for my audience here as well. So we are delighted to have you on the show, the CEO and founder of Cloud9 Strategy, which is a strategic bookkeeping practice, which is based in beautiful Gold Coast, Australia. Now, Jeannie, as we get started here, tell us about what it was like to be in your family business and they were generating $10 million, and then you help them create systems that enable them to generate revenue in excess of $100 million.
It was so much fun. It was definitely not without tears. But it was so much fun. And look, there was probably a bit of pressure, but I guess I've always been someone with lots of confidence. And so I had a lot of confidence in my abilities. And I think, like you, I really believe in working hard, and boy, did I work hard. But I think there's a thrill in working hard. So yeah, it was amazing. Our family was in the electrical retail industry in Victoria. So you would all know beautiful Melbourne. And when I was young, we had a big chain of stores, and so Melbourne and Victoria is quite big. I like to say down there, we were like a little fish in a big pond. And then my family came to the beautiful Gold Coast to retire, and they thought, we'll open a little shop. And we were like a big fish in a little pond, and that we had a marketing campaign, and it exploded. Honestly, it just exploded. So it was they had to make the decision whether they sold at 10 million, because it was like, oh, it's going crazy, or they were told, otherwise you probably want to grow it to 100 million, and then a public company, you'll come on their radar and you can sell it for a life-changing sum of money. So the crazy people that we are, we decided to go for the $100 million goal. And it was a really private goal. And so that was it. We started the journey. And what happened, I guess I was young, I was in my 20s, and we opened our first distribution center. It was the size of a football field, right? It was massive. But what happened there was we opened it and things started to fall apart a little. And being family, my father said, darling, you need to go and fix it. No direction on how I fix it. You need to fix it. And so what I did is, because I am all about health, I love to put my health first. So because I was working so hard and I wanted to fit some health in, I got on my little bicycle every morning and I rode down to our distribution center so I could get some exercise in. And I would work every day. And of course, that actually required, so hard work is great, but you need to pair that with prioritizing, right? What is the most important, and what I like to say will make the boat go faster, which is a great book. So I went down there and it was about prioritizing the most urgent things that had to get fixed.
Right.
And then it was really about, once we did that, it was systemizing those things, so, okay, here's the system. If we follow this system and everybody follows this system, then it will continue to work. And then beyond all of that, as all the problems ironed out, it was about recruiting and training someone to take over from me. And that became a little bit of something I repeated over and over again. So then I was sent to the next problem, the next mess to clean up, the next challenge that needed to be taken care of. And I guess I did that one thing after another, with little periods that there were times that I popped away and traveled and did my own thing, but always being drawn back, maybe bribed to come back and continue that journey. And one of the most incredible parts of that journey, apart from it was the best apprenticeship in business you could get, was when it was just me down at that big football field sized distribution center and a couple of guys in a big dusty warehouse. And then those years later, I was in my 30s and the offer came in for the public company. I think back then it was around $24 million. And, I think that's about 15 years ago. And I looked around and it was 2 stories, beautiful, bustling head office full of people. And I thought, it was just me, and it was a moment to stop and reflect. And look, I'm a problem solver. If I'm not problem solving, I'm rocking in a corner. And so it was something I needed, but it was amazing to touch all parts of an organization and be involved at that level. It's incredible.
It is absolutely incredible. I want to point out, 3 things that you mentioned there, maybe in passing, that I want my listeners to pay attention to. One of those things is a very clear goal, setting up a clear goal. You had a clear goal, and then after that, you created systems that helped you to get to those goals, and you went on to recruit and selection. These 3 things in any company, maybe you are building company from scratch, or you want to streamline your business. If you pay attention to these 3 things that Jeannie has referred to, and you master that, you will streamline your business, you will be able to move from whatever goal you want to bigger and better goals. So again, those 3 things. Number 1, set a clear goal for yourself. Number 2, create systems, because people fail, but systems, if they are properly done, they are going to help you get there faster. And number 3, recruit the right type of people. Recruit people who are smarter than you, and retain them, train them, create an amazing culture that is going to make sure that even in your absence, things get done. And I'm glad that Jeannie, you touched on that right at the beginning of our conversation here. Jeannie, we want to dive deeper because at some point you decided, to start a family, and you had to look at what type of business you want to be in. Talk to us about what happened during that time.
Yeah, so there's a little saying I heard a few years ago, and it's a mistake the first time, and it's a choice the second. And my
I love
joke
that.
is,
I'm going to
I know
use
I
that.
love it, right? I love it, and I have a little joke. I say, well, I must have made a lot of bad choices, because I think it's hard. Sometimes we need to, well, we don't need to, but sometimes we do bang our head against the wall, repeating that mistake a couple of times. But I'm someone who's all about taking responsibility and accountability for my world and what happens in it. And I guess growing up in that family and acquiring that kind of wealth, I saw the other side of it, and things can very quickly become about money. And we can often think that money fixes problems, both in business and in our personal life, right?
Right.
And I learned that that is not the case. I learned that wealth and success is not about money. Money is something that it can help you have some fun, but it's not about that. So I guess I had to decide for myself that I was going to be driven by other things. And so having my family and all that kind of thing, I took it on as a very big personal challenge to strive every day for that balance, and to strive for what I would call like the time, money, freedom synergy. Yeah, so that's where I decided to, and so I don't work crazy hours in my business, and I am scale obsessed. So when I started my little bookkeeping practice all alone in downstairs in my little basement, from day one, when we talk about goals, my goal, once I realized I wanted to have employee staff, my goal was scale. And for me, one of the fundamental things to understand about scale is you cannot create products and services that only you can service. So we're in a service-based business. So I had to be very careful and always keep it in mind that I wanted to create services that I could recruit a team to deliver. So we hear people say, oh, only I can do it. Nobody could do my job. Well, that's a path to being overwhelmed and not having any time for yourself. So scale. And 5 years in, I worked hard, but 5 years in, I had achieved that beautiful, thriving lifestyle business where I call it choose my own adventure. So for a while, I just worked just a few hours a week until finally I got bored and I wanted to try some new things and threw myself in a bit more. But that's my journey, was always to, and so now with my little boy, and I have stepchildren that are older as well, I always remind myself that what children want is they want your time and they want your attention, that money doesn't fix problems, and it's not what they want either. So if you're just working, if I hear men and I hear families say, well, I'm working so hard for my children, which is wonderful, but at some point you need to sit down and just remember that they haven't actually come to you and said, Dad, Mum, can you work really crazy long hours and earn lots of money? Because that's what I want from you. I want your time, your attention, your values, your life lessons.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. One of the things you touched on there, which we talk about here all the time, it is, start a business that you can employ others and fire yourself, so you can move out of your own way, and the business keeps on growing. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because it is really the only way for you to achieve financial freedom and also create a lifestyle business that you truly want. And for those perhaps who are listening for the first time, I want to invite you to consider what you're already doing. Are you the main person who deliver the services, or can you create a system? Again, that term, system that can allow you to get paid even while you're asleep. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Or while you're on vacation or doing something else. And you can do that. And I'm glad that Jeannie is here. Maybe at some point, you may also learn how it's done. And Jeannie, let's dive deep into talking about those deadly cash flow scenes that people may be meeting today and not knowing that it is them that is cheating them the success they truly want financially when it comes to cash flow. What is number one?
Love to, absolutely. Okay. So the first thing I'd like to say about the 7 deadly sins is, why even listen? Why bother? You know, this is numbers stuff. Business owners are generally creative types, and we're real networkers. So this numbers stuff, I'm just like you. Sometimes I get bored with it. And in fact, one of my team is my virtual CFO. She sits me down and holds me accountable because I just want to have fun, right? But here's why it's so important. Business failure statistics. Okay, so the statistics change a little bit depending on where you read them, but up to 80% of businesses fail in their first 5 years. Okay, and these deadly sins are responsible for a lot of that. So that's one of the reasons it's really important. And another reason is actually this that I'm going to give you today is a system. So you can download these 7 deadly sins. This is a manual. These are the rules of the game. It's not negotiable, and cash flow is oxygen for your business. Okay, so you need to be getting this stuff right, and it's actually simple. And if you identify today that you're getting any of this wrong, that's okay. Just remember, it's a journey. Start with small steps to improve your cash flow, and I promise you will get there. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to share. So let's jump in. So the 7 deadly sins can be summarized as an acronym, and that acronym is SERPICO. And SERPICO stands for sales, expenses, receivables, payables, inventory, cash at bank, and owner drawings. So we'll dive into the first one. Some of them will be more brief, and then there'll be a couple that I'll expand on. So with sales, that deadly sin actually relates to poor or no pricing system around your sales. So you can increase your profit and cash by making more sales, of course, especially if you're a solo operator. Oh, I made more sales. I've got some more cash and I've got some more profit. Okay. But what we see is a point when you employ a team and things change, where, I work with $4 million turnover business, just for example, that have got no profit. All right. And there's a reason for that. So when you start out in business as a solo operator, you often are just going, oh, I'll charge by the hour. That's twice as much as I was earning when I worked for my boss. But believe me now, and kind of I say, or trust me now, believe me later. You need a pricing system. So I'm going to give you an example. And pricing systems are always around your industry, what the market will bear, but also they relate to industry averages, what you should be charging on average. So you can Google this, you can Google industry benchmarks, industry averages, and you're going to start to get some of this info. So best example is give you a business as an example. So professional services business, someone who is delivering like behavioral services to clients. When she started out on her own, she was charging by the hour and earning a good rate. Okay, and she started earning some good profit over the years. Then she started to employ staff, and she could not move the needle on that profit, and things got really hard. So I introduced her to the rule of thirds for professional services, which works pretty well. And that is that a third of your turnover should be reserved for cost of sales. A third of your turnover should be reserved for operational expenses. And then a third will come out the bottom as profit. And she was not really charging enough, and therefore her cost of sales was too high. And that left her business in this situation where she had cash and profit problems. So she took the steps to increase her prices and to make sure when she employed staff, that rule began to be observed. And 12 months later, we've pulled 50% more profit out and 70% more turnover as well. So a good pricing system is usually not pricing by the hour. Unless you're really in an industry where that's all you can do, you're usually going to want to trade that money for value. Okay, so trade that money for outcome, package things up, as much as you can and do more fixed price value-based billing. Okay, so that is the first one. It's really, and you can Google anything you like on pricing systems, but it's really around pricing systems. Okay, so that's the first deadly sin, is around sales and a lack of pricing systems, which you'll really notice even more when you start to employ someone, because the profit and cash just get sucked away. So the next one is expenses, and this one's pretty easy. It's really around paying attention to your numbers. So are you sitting down at least, so first of all, is your bookkeeping up to date and accurate? If it's not, is your number one job right now. I can tell you there is no successful business owner who does not know and use their numbers. If your bookkeeping is not up to date, you're likely running your business on the bank account, and that is a pathway to failure. Okay, I'm going to be really black and white here. So you need to be sitting down and looking at your bookkeeping, looking at your numbers every month, usually with someone is helpful, just like I do. And you need to look at your expenses and work out how you can actively reduce them or improve how you are doing in that regard. So for example, let's say I was running a bookkeeping practice like I am now, and I sat down and I looked at my cost of sales expenses. So that for me, that would be wages, right, in professional services. And let's say I looked at those and my cost of sales was 45%. Then I'm going to say to myself, well, it should really be 33%. What can I do? What action can I take to move the needle on that expense? Then I might look at my operational expenses. Well, I've got Dropbox, but I've also got Google Drive. How could I reduce those expenses, and amalgamate that? Oh, look at that software I'm using. I don't think I need that. Okay, so reduce your expenses to improve your cash and your profit. So that one's really, really simple. The next one is receivables, and this is probably my favorite. So this one, please pay attention. So with this one, it's your receivable days. So we see lots of business owners really good at making sales, but not always great at collecting the money. And in fact, a lot of business owners have some fear and issue around even asking for payment, which is something that you definitely have to overcome. And your customers and your clients want you to be clear with them on how to give you payment. Okay, so when we talk about cash flow, I want you to think of a cash flow positive business and negative business. Let me give you an example. And in my family's business that grew from 10 to 100 million, they were not committing one of these sins. They had everyone locked in and it was working perfectly. So if you receive money from your customers before you pay everyone else, so your suppliers, your staff, your obligations, then you are generally a cash flow positive business and you're not going to experience the pain of cash flow problems. Yeah. The minute that you receive your money from your customers after, so 1 day, 2 days, 7 days after, you pay everybody else. So you pay your staff, you pay your suppliers, you pay tax obligations. If you're receiving money from customers after you do that, you've got a cash flow problem. Where are you going to get the money to pay your bills? You're going to have to be getting an overdraft. You're going to have to taking money that was actually reserved for your tax obligations. Something's going to be happening that put you in the red cash flow wise, regardless of making a profit, okay? Because receiving money from your customers after you pay for obligations has nothing to do with cash, all right? So with that one, I would say, how can you improve your receivable days? How can you improve your payment terms? Can you get bigger deposits from customers? Yeah. So I can tell you right now, I've been running my bookkeeping practice for 12 years. In 12 years, there has never been a situation where I have asked a business owner this question where they couldn't make improvements, okay? Where they couldn't get bigger deposits, where they couldn't get paid in advance. They would start by saying, oh, Jeannie, I don't know if I can do that. So really, have you asked the question? So they go and ask the question. Would you mind, Mrs. Smith, or Mrs. Smith, I take a 50% deposit. Mrs. Smith says, okay. Or Mrs. Smith, would you like to pay in full now before the job? Okay. And they say, Jeannie, everybody said okay.
Yes.
80-20 rule. 80% of your customers
It is
Yeah, we'll be
amazing.
really
I have
happy
to
to pay
comment
you in
on
advance.
that one, Janine, because I did the same mistake right when we started in 2012. I used to provide virtual assistant, as our listeners will know, and we will have the virtual assistant do the work for our customer, and then our customer pay. And it was always a struggle until I flip it to a place where the customer has to pay and the money is in the bank before we actually do the work, and then we can pay the virtual assistants to do their work, and it works all the time. So I committed sin, so to speak, cashless sin, until the light bulb went. But no, that's not how you do it. You get paid in advance.
Yes, me too. We've all committed this sin, right? And so there's no kind of, I like to say there's no problems, only solutions. So I know that a lot of the audience might scratch their head and say, I can't do that. Do you know what? You can. I promise you can improve it. Even if you're in an industry where you have to offer accounts, you can improve those days. Okay, so that one's really important. Now, the other sins, so payables, for example, so paying out your bills or paying out anything, it's kind of the same but in reverse. So pay for things after you get your money from your customers. All right, and if you can't quite get there, just shorten the days. I mean, the statistics I could give you on 1 or 2 or 3 days, and a big, really, the organization that bought our family business, I mean, they're just massive and buying up everything these days. I know they track every day of cash flow. So they look at what that costs their organization to miss a day of cash flow. So the big companies are absolutely managing this. All right, it's so important. So with your payables, just make sure that you can get the best terms that you can get. Can you get 7, 14, 30 days? Okay. So that one's easy. Don't need to dwell on that. The next one is
Before we
inventory.
move on, Janine, on that one, I wanted to stress to our listeners here. If you are a solopreneur, this is something that you can engage a virtual assistant to do for you. If you cannot have enough time, get somebody who is on top of these things. Because I know, because I was a solopreneur right at the beginning, how sometimes you actually don't have time to follow because you're driving the business. Get somebody who is a bookkeeper, who do the credit control part of that, or get a company to do that for you for a small fee. You'll be glad you have done, because the cost of not getting that money in far outweighs the expense of paying somebody else to do that.
It does. I'm huge on virtual assistants. So I've got a full-time virtual assistant. I've got another 2 accountants based in the Philippines. And what I say to my clients when I'm coaching and training them, and where I get the massive results, is to convince them of the importance of administration help. And that is because when we think of admin, sometimes people think of admin as pushing paper, right? This is the administration of your business. It is the back end of your business. And absolutely. So one of the clients that got the 70% increased turnover, 50% profit, that was convincing her to move from someone that was doing 10 hours a week here to a full-time virtual assistant. It's been game changing. So absolutely invest. Yeah.
Usually is.
Yeah.
Absolutely is.
Yeah. So with inventory, if you are a business that sells products, with inventory, it's the deadly sin relates to what we call poor inventory days. So again, it's really, are you leaving the stock on the shelf? So again, are you paying that supplier for the stock before you actually sell? So in our $100 million organization, we had some key team members. So back to team and the importance of that virtual assistant, as well as your local team. Team. It's the second part of my secret sauce for business, actually, because you need the basketball team to win the game. You can't do it all by yourself. I promise you're going to lose the game. And so with the inventory days in our organization, we always sold that stock before we paid the supplier. And that was no small feat, right? If we can do it, you can do it. Yeah, so, and we put a lot of effort into that. So are you paying the supplier before you sell the stock? A business recently said to me when I was talking to them about a new business they were opening, and it was in the food sector. And she said, you know what, Jeannie, the great thing about us is that our food has a long shelf life. We can pop it on the shelf. It doesn't matter if it sells. And I said, you've just hit the deadly sin around inventory. If you leave that stock on the shelf, you've got an inventory days or a stock turns problem, and you are going to pay for that stock before your customer pays you. Now, if you multiply that, then suddenly you've got all this money that you've paid out and you're trying to collect that money. So it's back to the pay for, get the money off the customer before you pay the.
Absolutely. I think we're having a slight technical difficulty there. Can you hear me, Jeannie?
Yes, got you now. Yeah.
Perfect. Please go ahead. We lost you for a second there.
Good stuff. So that is the one related to, so the next one is cash at bank, and that is about if you are running the business on the bank account. So this is a big thing that does contribute to businesses unfortunately folding. So this is one that I see all the time. And in fact, every time I meet a new client that says, oh, Jeannie, I haven't done my bookkeeping for 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, I think, let's see how we go. Because if your bookkeeping is not up to date and accurate, the only measure of how your business is doing is your bank account, and your bank account is not telling you how your business is performing. So trust me now, but believe me later, it is not. So just having money in the bank doesn't mean you are making a profit. It doesn't mean that you haven't got cash flow problems. And the best example I can give you is, again, like a business. So some years ago, I met with a restaurant, and they were a couple of years behind on the books, but they had cash in the bank. They were managing to get by. They had some money in the bank. So I wrapped up that bookkeeping, and what they didn't realize is that they had about $200,000 in tax obligations that they hadn't reserved money for. So the common thing is the money that we should be reserving for the tax office, we're actually spending without realizing it. So in that case, as happens in a lot of cases, they weren't going to trade out of that, and it leads to bankruptcy. So really, do not run your business on the bank account. Run your business on the financials is that one.
I love that.
So the very last deadly sin is owner drawings. And so for a lot of businesses, they are drawing money out of the business for themselves, which is normal. So I run my business under a trust structure, for example. And so that doesn't allow me to pay myself a salary or wage through the bookkeeping. So the money that I take out of the business does not appear on the profit and loss, and therefore it is somewhat hidden. And this is a trap a lot of businesses fall into. They draw money out of the business, but they're actually drawing more than the profit or drawing more than the cash reserves. Okay, so all of these things can be a little, if you're scratching your head and going, I'm not sure I understand all of this, what I would say is that there is lots of help out there, okay? So all you need to know first is this is a system. Trust the system, yeah? And then work the system. And if you need help with the system, just engage a little bit of help, all right? So you can get a strategic bookkeeper or a management accountant, which is really the same thing, to sit down with you, dive into your numbers and help you on this journey. And you are going to pay, the fees that you pay for that are going to be returned to you. So our clients tend to say they get 10x or above. So don't be too, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by all of this, but that owner drawing. So another example of business, a wonderful digital marketing company. So we sit down with them every month and we review what's happening. And what we do is we create a nice little spreadsheet or a Google sheet that reminds us of the things that we want to look at. And one of those things is to have a look at the owner drawings. So we'll have a look at how much the business has drawn out for the month. And we just have a look, did that exceed profit, right? Easy. And again, easy if you've got a little bit of help. So if you're struggling yourself, it's okay. You can get some help. So have a look, does it exceed? And we said to this client, your drawings is regularly exceeding the profit. Now, she said that was the highest value information we gave her that day, because it allowed her in her action plan to put a note, stop overdrawing. And she could go about looking at what that looks like. Okay, so that's overdrawings. And that is the 7 deadly sins.
You know what I love about this, and for those who are listening, there is a download that you can get this as well. So you can go through this very easily at your own pace so you can apply these little things. Now, if somebody had showed me these things right at the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, it would have saved me quite a lot of money, because oftentimes you don't realize you are making these mistakes, these sins, we're calling them, until you are deep into a financial situation. So you guys are listening to this at the time when you need it. Remember what we always say here: when a student is ready, a teacher will appear. You are ready for this information here today because you are listening to this. So you might as well take an action, apply what you're learning. And again, if you are finding some difficulties there, reach out to people. One of the things that you talked about there, Jeannie, is trust the system. As you can tell, Jeannie has been doing it for a long time. In fact, it runs one of the largest, bookkeeping over there in Australia. In fact, not too long ago, was on the run-up of the finalist for an award as one of the. You talk about it, Jeannie. Actually, I might be butchering it.
Yeah, sure. So, a couple of I'm really selective about the awards that I go for. So one that I'm still waiting on to see if I get the top spot, but I'm officially a finalist for Women in Finance Australia, which was really, really exciting. And also for, you probably know Xero software. So I am I'm in the top 3 Xero bookkeepers Australia-wide. So that's really exciting too. And a part of my submissions and the reason that I was able to achieve those awards was also my innovation in the industry. So, bookkeeping is numbers 101. It's up-to-date, accurate accounting records. What I'm talking to you about here is strategic bookkeeping. So it's really systems and methods in order to help you to take action to improve the profit and cash to build your dream business and life. So I like to call it a holistic approach to actually help businesses, because bookkeeping 101 on its own is really more of a cost. You don't do anything, but when we actually take those numbers and insert a system to help you, wow, it's an investment. So that's what my Women in Finance and Xero Australia awards are about.
I love that. And the reason I'm pointing this out for you guys to take action on that is this is a system we've talked about. And, I'm big when it comes to systems. Go download the PDF that, Jeannie has put together and sit down and see if you can actually work with it. Look, if you can see it clearly, whatever you're doing, based on these ones, you can change it effectively. The reason many people don't change anything is because they are not clear on what is it they are looking at, what they are looking for. And Jeannie has created an incredible training and download that you can access it. So you want to go to this particular website, which will be at the bottom of this link. In fact, Jeannie, can you spell it out for everybody to know where they can get it?
Yeah, so if you go to Cloud9 Strategic and it's got the number 9 in there, then you can just go to our blog section, and it's one of our latest blogs, the 7 Deadly Cash Flow Sins, and it's got some additional information in there that's going to be really helpful. And again, you print it out and use it like a manual is ideal. And look, the results that you can get from that, like the expenses one that I didn't dwell on a lot, but just as an example, I've been really really drilling that into a client for 6 months, and we had to work quite diligently, and I call it urgently. And he's been in business 17 years. So from focusing on cost of sales and job costing, which is all around expenses, he's got the best 3 months that he's had in 17 years profit wise. He's gone from zero to $250,000 in profit by focusing in, again, looking at the numbers. You cannot improve what you can't measure, but just focusing in on that one thing. So I promise you, if you work with that document and if you work on that one thing at a time, you will get really great results.
Absolutely love this. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, it is better to do business with other people, especially those who have taken their time to specialize in that area. So as always, if you want to get some assistance, you know where to find Jeannie. Reach out and see how you can do business together. Alternatively, reach out to the team here, and we'll be delighted to help you. Final thoughts, Jeannie, here before we wrap up our conversation. As an entrepreneur, have had this amazing training working in a $10 million company to $100 million company. What is the one thing, perhaps, that looking back was critical to the success of the company, which business owners can learn from?
Yeah, so with the $100 million one, do you know what? Without the good cash flow management, definitely, even if you've got everything else in place, if you run out of cash, then that's going to cause a lot of problems. So when I reflect on what they got right around every single part of that they were getting right, I think that's definitely a really, really critical one. And the only other thing is when I speak to my father about the success that he had, and bear in mind too, he says he's not a genius. He's like an averagely intelligent guy, but he is big on a system and critical drivers or norms, those things we do every day to move us to the KPI. He will say that those critical drivers or norms is what he built his business on. He relentlessly followed those norms, critical drivers, in order to get to where he wanted to go. And he supported his team based on a one-page set of norms or critical drivers. So that's another thing to take away, those everyday actions. Make sure you're clear on that and that you're really working with the team on that.
Love that. Thank you so much, Jeannie. We truly appreciate that. We would love to have you back, maybe to talk about the 5 ways to pull cash and profit out of your business. That's one topic that I would love for us to talk about. Or the other topic, again, that people can listen to is stop the insanity, the mistakes and misconception which commonly hold businesses back from thriving. What a great topic that will be. So, we will talk behind the scene here to see when we can have you back so we can educate people here in the United Kingdom to make things happen. So we want to say thank you for your generosity in sharing your knowledge, what you've learned over the years as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
It was fun. And guys, go make it happen. You now know where to find information. Finance is truly, if you get this right, a lot of other things seems to fall in place. If you get this wrong, it has the potential of giving you headache, even getting you to have the law enforcers on your back, and you don't want that. So you might as well put every effort you can to get this right. And that's why we're bringing you some amazing experts like Jeannie here. So we want you to succeed because we know you've got something of value to share with the rest of the world. Go make it happen. Until next time, remember to live well, to live with passion, and remember the best is truly yet to come. And don't forget, if you want to learn about how to start a podcast, how to scale a podcast, or how to monetize a podcast, you can reach out to our team. We've got an incredible training program that we've designed specifically for business owners. You can use this vehicle to enlarge your influence. With that said, I can't wait to join you or to have you join us again on another episode where we bring you some amazing guests. Thanks again, Jeannie. Talk to you soon.
Lovely. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.